Did QuantumScape sign a game-changing deal to save their company, or is this the pathway for them to achieve mass manufacturing and adoption? In this video, we're going to be talking about the QuantumScape licensing deal that was signed with Volkswagen's PowerCo in July of 2024. We're going to talk about what is exactly in this licensing deal, what is at play, what are the timelines, and I'll finish it off with my thoughts at the end. This licensing deal is a non-exclusive deal with QuantumScape and PowerCo to allow PowerCo, Volkswagen's battery division, to manufacture their batteries at scale. QuantumScape is licensing their battery technology, their proprietary information, and the manufacturing process to PowerCo. In initial signing of this agreement, it did include a royalty prepayment. So what does that royalty prepayment mean? I'll get to that in a little bit. So the overview of this deal is it's a collaboration and IP agreement between QuantumScape and PowerCo regarding QuantumScape's first commercial product, the QSE5, their 5 milliamp battery. PowerCo will license this technology from QuantumScape and take on the mass manufacturing requirements to get to gigawatt hour scale. In this agreement, it allows PowerCo to build up to 40 gigawatt hours per year of battery capacity of QuantumScape's battery, which roughly equates to 1 million vehicles per year, with the option of extending to up to 80 gigawatt hours per year. In this licensing deal, QuantumScape will also make an undisclosed percentage or royalty per battery that PowerCo manufactures and Volkswagen eventually sells, or PowerCo eventually sells in that end. So the key area of this licensing deal that I would be really interested in learning about is, where does the IP land? Where does the intellectual property land? Is PowerCo buying all of the intellectual property from QuantumScape? That isn't the case at all. So in this agreement, QuantumScape actually maintains all proprietary IP that they developed up until this agreement was made, and likewise PowerCo maintains all of their proprietary IP up until this agreement was made. Now, as a part of this licensing agreement, any new intellectual property developed between QuantumScape and PowerCo will be shared between both sides. So again, key item here, QuantumScape's proprietary ceramic separator that they've developed for their QSE5 battery still remains solely within QuantumScape's hands. So what this means that any of the IP developed between PowerCo and QuantumScape, as PowerCo starts to build up their manufacturing capacity, QuantumScape can essentially leverage for their own future factory if they decide to build a gigawatt hour factory in the future. Additionally, both PowerCo and QuantumScape are essentially creating a scale-up team where QuantumScape is designated some of their employees to work directly with PowerCo to essentially fast-track development of their mass manufacturing battery product. There's been a lot of news lately with QuantumScape and PowerCo both hiring and essentially assigning a bunch of workers and engineers to handle this really hard problem of mass manufacturing. Additionally, recently in the last, I believe, 2 months, PowerCo hired a new PowerCo US CEO that is going to play a key role in their QuantumScape partnership. So essentially, PowerCo has hired and essentially dictated that their US PowerCo CEO is essentially focused at industrializing their solid-state battery option. And of course, PowerCo's solid-state battery option is with QuantumScape and licensing QuantumScape's battery technology. So the royalty prepayment, we unfortunately don't have a lot of information on how much QuantumScape stands to make. So I'm not really going to sit here actually and speculate what my theories are. But I do want to focus a little bit on that $130 million prepayment advance royalty that PowerCo already gave to QuantumScape. So QuantumScape already has this $130 million prepayment royalty, but they can't assign that as actual revenue until this licensing agreement or the product or service that they've both come into agreement with has been delivered. So what this means is the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to and the biggest thing that I'm looking to watch is when does QuantumScape move this $130 million prepayment from their cash war chest and actually then log it as income. That will designate essentially that this agreement and this technology has been proved out. PowerCo is very happy with what they've seen with this battery technology, and now we're essentially entering into that mass manufacturing aspect. So if you were somebody kind of just getting into QuantumScape and wanted to learn a little bit more about, some of these past deals QuantumScape has made, I would strongly look to see, has this $130 million prepayment royalty already been logged as income? Hopefully this happens in 2025, especially with all of the noise PowerCo and QuantumScape are making in pushing to get into mass manufacturing and get these batteries out into real world applications as soon as possible. Now, the other thing that I find really interesting with this licensing deal is, again, it's non-exclusive. So that means QuantumScape could actually then take this deal as a template and start to make that same deal with other manufacturers. So what this means is we could see a space where QuantumScape has, 3 to maybe even up to 5 or numerous different types of licensing agreements where other manufacturers are essentially licensing QuantumScape's technology to build up this type of battery. Now, this is perfect because, again, it de-risks QuantumScape from having to build a very costly production plant. Clearly with where things are at globally at this point, especially where things are at in the United States, there's a lot of risk that has to be taken on to build a manufacturing plant. So the fact that QuantumScape can just focus on essentially improving and advancing their battery specifications and actually design better and better batteries, they can essentially allow other people to take on the work needed to build up that plant. Because again, building mass manufacturing plants is not an easy thing at all. Now, there is a little bit of a disclaimer in the licensing agreement between PowerCo and QuantumScape. So although there is nothing stopping QuantumScape from licensing with other manufacturers, in their agreement, PowerCo actually has the option to expand their capacity above the initial agreed upon capacity. So essentially what this means is at any time when QuantumScape goes and starts to sign with other OEMs, PowerCo will have the option to say, hey, you know what? I want to expand this agreement due to, a certain different number of options. Maybe PowerCo wants to capitalize on their first mover advantage. Now, in another video, I'll do a deep dive on PowerCo and kind of what their go-to-market strategy is. But for now, it's good to know that PowerCo has this option to extend their agreement with QuantumScape for up to 6 years after the start of production. So again, if everything goes well, this agreement can essentially be held up until the 2030s. Now, as I mentioned here, I think this licensing agreement is the best strategy possible for QuantumScape to achieve mass success moving into the future. It de-risks them from having to take on a large amount of debt and essentially burn a ton of cash before they can actually even log in the revenue from their factory. It allows them to essentially focus on what they're good at, which is designing their solid-state battery. Their current product, their QSE5, their 5 amp battery cell, I personally believe isn't their best solution or their best option just yet. I feel like they're essentially holding off on some of their really, really great battery technology, and they're going to essentially slowly drip feed the advancements over time. So I believe that there's essentially a large runway for QuantumScape to improve their battery specifications with this research that they have and not needing to get bogged down with the mass manufacturing aspects. Now, personally, I've been keeping track, on LinkedIn, mainly on what PowerCo and Volkswagen have been saying. You know, it's one thing to sign a licensing agreement, but it's a completely other thing to continuously bring it up as kind of a marketing aspects to talking about this agreement. So there's been a number of things that I've seen from PowerCo and Volkswagen that makes me believe that they're very happy with where things are at with QuantumScape. In Q1 of 2025, Volkswagen and their leadership actually visited the QuantumScape plant. I'm sure that was probably to actually witness some of these first batteries coming off of Cobra. That's my opinion. Or potentially some of their second iteration or very close to final iteration batteries that Volkswagen are going to manufacture with PowerCo. Additionally, I can make a whole separate video on PowerCo's progress in building their manufacturing plants. So PowerCo is currently building 3 battery plants, one in Germany, Canada, and in Spain. Their Germany plant is scheduled to be completed in 2025, this year. Their Spain plant is looking to be completed in 2026, and the Canada plant looks like it's going to be completed in 2027. I believe PowerCo is also looking to build upwards to maybe even 8 manufacturing plants by 2030 or into the 2030s as well. So clearly Volkswagen's position is they are going full on into EVs, and one of the key things that can make or break an EV is the battery technology. So they're clearly, with PowerCo operating as a separate division, putting a lot of eggs in this basket of electrification. So overall, I'm still very optimistic to kind of where QuantumScape is at. You know, with this licensing agreement, QuantumScape isn't going to make as much money as possible compared to building a manufacturing plant, but this allows them to essentially stay as debt-free as possible and staying as solvent and essentially as cash rich as possible while they continue to advance their battery research and continue to build the best batteries possible. Again, I'm really excited to see if QuantumScape's battery technology can be used potentially in aviation with the really stringent requirements needed in that sector. But of course, that might not really that might not bear fruit well into the late 2020s or into the early 2030s as QuantumScape reaches maturity in the EV sector. So again, I'll definitely keep updated as we hear more and new updates from QuantumScape. So definitely expect to see more videos from me in the future on this topic.